Hello everyone, welcome back to another coding tutorial. In this tutorial, we are going to go deeper into working with arrays. The main focus of this will be seeing how we can use our loops for arrays, as well as actually using the array class that is existing in Java and that is built in. We'll pretty much cover some of the things we covered in the previous coding tutorial, but we're going to add on a little bit more to show you the different things you can do with the array class, for example. So let's go ahead and get started. In this case, I have created a class called array uses. Again, in this example, I'm going to be using the generic main method, and we're just going to be working with this one file. So we'll go ahead and see what we can do with this. So first, I wanted to just go ahead and get into using our loops for our arrays. So first, we're going to do using loops. All right, our first case is going to be that we are going to create a array. Now we're not going to do anything specific with our built-in array class yet, but we're just going to go ahead and create an array, and we're just going to create an array of numbers. So int, numbers equals, and we're going to use the list style, for example. So we'll say 4, say 13, 6. So I'm just giving it random values. And we have that there. All right, let's see here. Oh, forgot my semicolon here. All right, now we are good to go. And again, to print the array, using a for loop, we are going to simply say for, we're going to give it a loop iterator value. So we're going to say I equals 0, while I is less than our numbers dot length, and our iterator, our increment here. So we have our for loop, and again, I'm just going to use my pre-created print statement I have down here. Copy, paste, and we are going to then say numbers I. All right. So here we have that example of printing a statement, printing out our actual array elements. Another thing we could do is say that, for example, the value at plus I plus is, or actually we'll just do this like this. All right. So I just did this for formatting purposes, just to kind of help us see what's going on when we're using our for loop. And here it's going to show us the different values. So the index, and it's also going to give us the value at that index. So you see it says the value at 0 is 4, the value at 1 is 13. So it's basically showing you the loop process. It's printing it out one at a time, and it's also giving you that loop iterator value of I each time it runs. So it's just kind of showing you how the loop works in this case. So that is a standard way you can use a for loop to print out your arrays. Now that you have that, you see we have simply printed it out. You could also use these numbers to do, for example, a calculation. So we could say um, for loop for calculations. In this case, we can use the same for loop structure. So we'll take that. We'll come here, paste it. Now, the only thing that is going to change is our actual loop contents. So this portion here. Now, let's say we want to find the sum. So first, we need to have a variable that can hold the sum value. So we'll say int sum equals 0. This will hold the array sum value. And then we are going to use sum in loop. So what are we going to do? We're going to easily just say the following. So our sum is going to plus equal, which again is going to say sum is going to equal to sum plus whatever we're saying. And in this case, we're going to say numbers, and we're going to say I. All right. Another thing we can do is do a print statement so we can see the sum keep going up. So system.out print line, and we'll say the sum is like that. So this would be doing a calculation. So we're going to add to the sum, or we'll say add each index or array index to the sum. So that way it kind of makes more sense while we're doing this, and I will go ahead and test this out. But first, we'll go ahead and put our little print break that we do here so that we can see the difference. And we'll do asterisks again. Oops, forgot my quotes. All right, and we will go ahead now and run this file. All right, and now you see that our index was being added to the sum each time our loop ran. So the last one did not change because our last index, or our last element, excuse me, the last element in our array is 0. So that is why the last two are the same, because obviously if you add 0 to something, it's not going to change. So that is why you see 460 twice, but overall it does run. So that is another case that you can use for loops for, is to do calculations. Of course, you can do multiplication, subtraction, whatever you need to do, but you can do that here using a for loop as well to use all of the numbers that are in this array, for example. So now that we've covered that example, we will go ahead and also say we're going to find a value in a loop. So again, pretty much your basis is going to be the for loop. So we're going to use a for loop again. We're going to use numbers as well. And we are going to take this and we are going to copy and paste it down here and modify it as we need. So I'm just going to empty this out. All right. So first, what we're going to do is create our value of target. We're going to say our target is 12. And other than that, we're going to say that we're going to be looking for this value of 12. So if we go in our for loop and we do a conditional statement, so what we're going to do is say if our numbers, if our index in numbers is equal to our target, we want to say that let's do our print statement system. Let me just go grab it instead of typing it. That's why I have it down here. So copy that, paste it here. We're going to say we're going to print something. Then we're going to say else. If it's not, we're going to print something. So we're going to say this number is not the target, or yeah, this number is not the target number. We're going to say that. In this one, we'll say the array contains the target number. And then we're going to put a break statement here just to stop the loop if the target is found. All right, so overall, right here is our code to go through the array to see if it has a specific element or if the element is equal to something. So this is how you can use your conditionals inside of your for loop to work more with your arrays. In this case, we're checking to see if a specific element is in an array, and it's going to give us some feedback on that. So for this, I'm going to go ahead and add our print line so we can split out our output here. Here we have that. Go ahead and run that here as well. And you see there, we simply said that this number is not the target number, and it keeps going until it finds that the array contains the target number. Now, if you take a look back, if we go to our original array, we see that 12 is not the last index. So that means as soon as it found that item, it stopped going through the rest of the array because it found what it was looking for. So that was the use of break. If we didn't use break, it would have printed out that, the next output would have been this number is not the target number, 40. But in the case of searching, once you find what you're looking for, the break is useful so you're not just wasting time. So that is how you can use your for loop to do an array search or a linear search, for example. So now that we've covered those and working with conditions, we'll go into our for each example. So here we'll do using for each loop. All right, so we're going to use another array. So we're going to say string colors equals new string, actually we're going to say equals. We're just going to give it some values: blue, purple, green, yellow, and we'll stop it there. All right, so we have a string array Then we are going to use our for each. So our example for that, we could say for string color, and then you use colon, which is referring to in colors. So that would be our setup for our for each. So you see we don't have to do int I equals 0, I is less than colors.length. We don't have to do that. We're just simply stating this. Now we're going to use our print statement. Oops. Put that there though. So we're going to use our print statement. Grab it here, place it here. And then we are going to say that we are going to print out color, because that will print out the value. So we can say this, and then we can say is in the array. Color array. That's more specific. All right. So to review this, we are simply creating a string array of colors, has 4 colors in it, and then we're using our for each loop. So for the string color in colors, so it's going to go through each element in your colors array. It's going to print it out, and we'll test that out. So save that, go ahead and run our code here. And you see it's printing it out right there. So I forgot to put our little print breaker there, but you see the for each works the same way as your other for loop. It's just a little simpler, but it's going to go through that loop each element at a time. So let me go ahead and just put this here. Easier to see. So that's using a for loop. So far we've pretty much just been using loops to do something with our array, whether it's printing it or finding it, something in it, or something of that nature. Now, that is pretty much what your loops are useful for. Okay. So another thing you can use in this case would be to work with your array class. So that is what is built into your Java, and you can pretty much use it or import it like your scanner. And so for that example, we need to first import it. So if we go to the top, we're going to go ahead and import it. So we'll say import java.util. And you see it's right there, arrays. So we're going to hit that and import it. All right. So this pretty much contains a bunch of the built-in methods we can use with arrays, but the only way you can access them is if you import this module, package, however you want to call it. So we're importing the array class. It's going to give us access to these methods that we can use now to see what we are working with here. So in this case, we are going to still use our colors array. So we're going to say using array methods, the colors array. All right. So the first one we're going to do is the toString. Now this is going to print the array. Okay, so we don't necessarily have to use that for loop. All right, so I'm just going to do let's do some stuff here. Oh, I'm outside of my main, so let me slide this up some. All right. And here we are going to add our stuff now. So we have our array. So what we're going to do is use our print statement. So I'm going to copy our print statement, paste it here, slide it over some. All right, and inside of this, we are going to use our arrays method. So that would be arrays, like that, dot. Now, as soon as we see dot, you see all of these built-in methods we can use. Now, again, I did not cover all of these, but you see it's going on for a very, very, very long time. So there are a lot out there you can use, but I just gave you some of the common ones. So we have arrays. We're going to say the toString. In that, you would put what array name that you want to put to a string. In this case, we're going to do colors. All right, that's it. So now if we run our code, we should see the output of colors. And it prints it pretty much in a listed format with our square brackets. So we did not have to use the for loop to print out our information. It simply did it like that for us. So that was an example of using our toString array method. Now our second one, we will do our sort array. So we will do let me give you some notes. So we'll say using the numbers array. Sorry, drew blank. And we are going to do the dot sort method. All right. And what do we do for that? Pretty much same thing. We're going to use our print statement. All we're going to do is say arrays dot sort. Then we're going to give it the array name. So we're going to use our numbers one because we had all those numbers in there. All right. And here in this case, oops, I meant to put that outside. So just to show you an example, we're getting this red here. It's basically saying it's not allowed. So you do have to technically do it outside because of the void in there. So I'm going to take this out. We're going to do this like this. You use your sort method first. And then you print the sorted method. So basically it's going to take in here the method, or excuse me, it's going to take in the array. It's going to sort it. Once it's sorted, the array is stored as the sorted array. So when you go to print it, it is already sorted. So when we come here and we say arrays dot toString and we say numbers, then it would be sorted. So we'll go here and we will say, for example, a print statement. I'm going to use this so you can see the difference. Go here, paste it, we're going to say here, array before sorting. And then we are going to say here, array after sorting. And then that way you can see the difference of what's going on with the sort method. I'm going to run that. All right, and here you see that before our array was not sorted, it was just pretty much random. Once it's sorted, it was in chronological order, going from lowest to highest. So that is how you can work with your sort method. Now it works with your letters too. It just goes from A to Z, but same idea here. All right, and again, we use that copy of method. So there's tons of methods, but again, I'm not going to spend all of the time, but I'll do this copy one because you might need to copy. So we would do 3 copy of method. And basically we're going to create a copy of our array. So we'll say here, first array is going to be int, let's do string names equals, and we'll just do some simple Jake and Sarah. All right. So we have our first array. Then we are going to create a copy of array. So to do that, what we would do is again start off with string, say names 2 equals, and then this is where you use the method. So you say arrays dot copy of, and then we are going to give it what array we're trying to copy. So we're going to say names, and then we are going to do comma, how big do we want it? So we're going to say 10. All right. So that is an example of using our copy of method. Now we're going to want to print this out. So again, to save us some time, we are going to just set up our print statement here. So we're going to say here, print statement, original array. Then we're going to say what we're printing. So we're going to say arrays.toString, and we're going to say names. That's our first one. And then our second case, we're going to say copied array and then we're going to use our other method again, toString. We're going to say names 2. All right, And again, we're going to print out our barriers so we can see the difference. So let me copy that. Put that there and let's test it out. All right. So here you see we have our original array. Then we're saying our copied array is going to be of value 10, which we have done here. Now, when we copy it, we don't have the contents in there for those additionals, so it is just automatically going to give you null for those additional added spaces in your array. This is where you would then use that index to input different values in there. So you say here, adding values to copied array. All you would do is names. Let's say 2, for example, is going to equal TJ names. 3 is going to equal to Janet. Then you could even just skip, so we can say names 9 is going to equal to, let's say, Bob or something. So then again, if we wanted to print that print our added values, that is, we'll just use that. And then you should see the values are then going to be in place. Now, in this case, we are getting an error. So you see here, it says index 2 is out of bounds for length 2. So coming here, the reason we're getting that is because when you use arrays close to names, then we're running into the issue because I did not put names 2. I put names. So when you're creating your arrays, also be careful with the naming because things like that can happen. So that was just a oopsie on my part. But let's go ahead and test that out. And now you see that copied array now has those new values in it. Again, we are staying in bounds. We are not requesting it to add an element outside of the bounds. We're basically just replacing those nulls with values once we had it copied. So that's how you would then add your values once you copy an array. Yes, technically you can go about this and do some sort of loop to help you fill in the array if you would like, but this is just a manual way to do it. So this is some common things you can do with your arrays. I don't want to drag it any further for your array methods. So that is the common ways that you can use those imported array methods here as well. Now, there are those manual methods that you may create. So we'll say using arrays with personal methods. All right, so let's say you have a method. So we'll say public static void print array. So here we could say that we are, oops, getting an issue here because, well, I'll just keep going for now. All right, so we could say here, we could say for int I, or, well, we're just going to assume that we're working with integers. So int num in, oops, we're going to put an array. So we'll put this here. So we'll say int r. here we are going to come here and say R. And then we are going to state what we're going to do. So system, dot print system, dot out, dot print line, excuse me, can't type. Then we are going to do R, then we will do num. All right, like that. So we have a print statement here. I'm just going to get this out of the way. We're going to then put it, let's try to put it up here. So we're going to put it at the top, just outside of our main method, so we can call it in our main method. So we have that array. We're passing in an array. It's going to take an array of integers, and then it's going to do a for each loop on it. So we're going to come down here in our main. Let's calling our customize array method, not using the built-in one. And then we would say, let's just go ahead and create some 2 arrays that we can test. So we'll say 1, 2, 3, 4. Int nums2. We're going to say 10, 20, 30. And then we are going to call the print array method. And now it's going to pretty much call this method that we placed here. So it's going to call that at the bottom and run it. Come here, we're simply going to say print array. I'm going to say nums1, print array nums2. And of course, as always, we're going to add our little print spacer here to see our output. Then I'm going to add it here as well. All right. So that's using a custom array that we created. All right, and in this case, we are just going to be getting the index for out of bounds, because basically it's going through this and it is saying that our index is not accurate in this case. So that's why we are kind of getting that up here. But again, it's more so we would have to change this to be like the other for loop. You can use it that way, but again, it just depends on what you're kind of doing. So I'm not going to necessarily waste time going through this error. So we're just going to go ahead and exit that one. But you do see that here we are at least printing our first one out. But it is due to what we have in our for loop for this. So if we were to also change this, for example, to our standard, so for int equals 0, I is less than r dot length, then we could say I plus plus, then we say r equals I. like that. Come down here, test it again. All right, there we go. So that fixed it. So it was basically just our for each. Again, it's a little complicated when you're working with these loops. You have to be careful. Some work, some don't. Some cause issues, some don't. Um, it's just basically all a little bit of trial and error, but I've seen a lot of people run into that issue. So just kind of showing that as well. So that is working with our custom. And of course, same thing would work with your objects. So I believe we have an example class somewhere. So let's see, we do have one. Student, think. Yes, so we have a student class here. You see we technically have different, or maybe we should do a ride actually. So ride, for example, is more simple. We have ride. So you could have done a, created an object from ride, for example. So, when we tested our ride here, let me open that file up. Here, we're creating this object. You can technically do the same thing with arrays. Instead of using, your normal data type of int, string, blah, 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 you can do the same thing with arrays. Just specify the class as your array type here. I'm not going to get into that because that kind of will drag this out a lot further. And if you don't have the same files that I have, it's going to be a little confusing. And then you would have to go and pretty much duplicate the code that I did in these examples. But you can technically use objects to create arrays of objects. So just wanted to throw that out. But there is an example of that, at least in the lecture slide, that you can take a brief look at, but I won't get into that here, but I did just want to mention that as well. So I think we covered a lot of content in this video. I'm not going to drag it any further. So hopefully this was useful about what you can do with your built-in array class in Java. Again, you saw that there were over hundreds of methods out there you can use. I only covered approximately 4 of them, but you can take a deep dive yourself to see what's out there and what you can use. So hopefully this tutorial was pretty detailed enough for you to understand how to use your loops, how to use your built-in array class, and for the most part in this intro course, I'll stop our experimentation with arrays here because again, it does go very deep and it can take at least weeks to cover everything you can do with arrays, but I won't do that in this series. So hopefully you got a good idea of what arrays are, how can you use them, and what you can do to store your data. So thank you for watching this video, and I look forward to seeing you all in another video.